Hello and welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B, and I'm thrilled to introduce you today to my good friend, Maria Sinai. She is an energetic spirit, and I can't wait to share her with more of the world. Maria has always been focused on her inner self work and really awakening to her strong desire to know herself on a deeper level. This personal growth journey has led her to studies at the Core Energetics Institute in New York. Once she completed her training in New York, her family actually relocated to Southern California, and it was here in SoCal that she studied flower essences, that she studied homeopathic remedies. She completed a registered yoga teacher training as well, and then moved on to learning holistic skincare, and she became an esthetician because she really wanted to understand how to treat the skin with the respect that it deserves as the largest organ of the body. In integrating all of these different forms of healing modalities that she had learned, she finally started to heal her own skin from eczema and psoriasis. Maria's passion to heal herself has led her to actually wanting to help and guide others on their inner and outer healing and growth journeys as well. Currently, she is about to launch her first skincare product, and that is all being made and marketed from the island of St. Martin, which is where she now resides. Now, while this started out to be more of a skincare conversation, and we go over actually a lot of really interesting stuff there, this turned into a discussion about self-love as well, and what a deep and sometimes hard to grasp concept self-love actually is. Maria shares with us a personal experience that she has recently gone through and is still processing. And it's a valuable conversation to listen to because it's one that is so relatable no matter what your experience, no matter what your circumstance is. It's a message about love that has been coming up a lot for me lately, just in all of the people that I've been talking to, the topics I've been studying on love and this understanding of our need for love and our understanding that we are love keeps coming up, and it came up again in this conversation. And I think it's so valuable to talk about over and over because it's really one of the only conversations that truly matters. Before we dive in, I do just have a quick ask of you. If you like this show, if you have been listening, if you are enjoying the guests and enjoying the topics that I bring on this show, please take a moment to like and subscribe on whatever platform you prefer. It helps so much in getting my message out there further for more people to hear, and the more people we can empower with information about their own health and well-being, the healthier our communities will get. So thank you so much for taking a moment to do that for us. Please share this podcast with someone that you think might enjoy it as well. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing so. With that, I'll introduce you now to Maria Sinai. Maria, my friend, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Holly. With pleasure.
So Maria and we met how many years ago now? I don't even know. 10
Over
years?
6 for sure. Maybe more, maybe closer to 10.
Yeah. So we were working at an integrative pharmacy called Pharmaca, which recently ran out of business, but had multiple locations. And I was working in the supplement department. You were working up with all the esthetician products, like all the skincare and makeup and all that stuff. And when you started working there, I was like, who is this woman? She is awesome. I can't wait to get to know her. And that's how we became friends.
We did, we did. Yes, it was. It was a great, I loved working there and getting to meet all those wonderful practitioners. And you and I just connected and stayed connected. And it's just been a wonderful journey to have this friendship with you and Lex.
Yeah. And gosh, we even got to visit you about a year and a half ago at your new home in St. Martin in the
That's right.
islands.
Yes, in the Caribbean.
Oh, so jealous.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful place. But I mean, I watched you. You straight manifested it. You
Yes, I did.
manifested that move.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were making that introduction in the back of my head, I wanted to say, but you said it for me. I manifested it. And ironically, the new place that I'm living in, I have moved a couple of apartments in 4 years, and each one has been like more unique than the next. And I just remember saying in my thoughts, I don't understand why I'm living on an island. I always wanted to have an ocean view. This is like really weird. Like, why would I live on an island if I wasn't going to have an ocean view? And then one day I just let it go. And ironically, an apartment opened up on the same street, and I have full ocean and lagoon view and a rooftop to look at both views. So it's just got to keep manifesting. And what I've actually learned in my manifestation, and sometimes it's hard because I'm an Aries, I'm impatient, I want it now, is having that manifestation, asking the universe for requests, but then letting it go, just letting it go like a helium balloon into the sky and allowing the universe to sort of make all those adjustments, because the way I found this current apartment was truly a fluke. So I really do believe in manifestations.
Well, let's talk about manifestations more because I have, over the years that I've known you, this is something that you've actively worked on,
Mm.
not just moving to the island, but just life in general. I
Hmm.
feel like you've always been a pretty good manifester. And I think what you said is the key in manifestation, which is, you can put that request out there, but you have to then turn it over to God or the universe or
Yes.
source. And you can't worry about the details. You have to let the details completely go, and you have to let your own timeline
Mm.
go.
Mm.
Can't be too attached to it.
It's very, very true. I waited 4 years for this apartment.
Yeah. And you found it. It
It
found you.
really did. It found me. It really was such a fluke. But anyhow, yeah, as far as manifestation, I have been really blessed to manifest jobs. Literally, like I have great story after great story. Pharmaca was a manifestation. I was in New Mexico, stopped in on the side of the road with my rental car from Albuquerque, and I pull in, and there's a Trader Joe. Love Trader Joe's. And there's Pharmaca. And I'm like, what the hell is this place? Oh my God. And I walked in, and it was like, I just love the vibe. And I was like, it was like I was sniffing it out. I was checking it out. And behind the register, it said, looking for, what was it you did there, Holly, at Pharmaca?
Well, I worked in the vitamin supplement
Yeah,
department.
looking
Yeah.
for someone to do that role. And I was just blown away. Well, at the same time of being there, I got introduced to this skincare line called Evan Healy in San Diego. I got back, and within a week, I'd had a job at Evan Healy and Pharmaca.
That's right. I forgot you worked with Evan Healy. Oh,
Yeah, and I
I
loved it.
love their products.
Yes. I became fascinated because they infuse natural ingredients along with flower essences, which is one of my passions and one of something I take very seriously. Flower essences have really helped me on the road to my emotional recovery and still do when I feel imbalanced. And I recently just taught a workshop on incorporating flower essences. We made a bottle, journaling, meditation, and then putting into open heart yoga postures. So that was a 2-hour workshop that went like to give a shout out to Joga in Simpson Bay in St. Martin. Nikki was fabulous.
It's amazing. Flower essences, and actually, I think that was one of the things I learned about you when I was working with you at Pharmaca, is you were one of my go-tos if I had questions about the flower essences or recommending them for people, because I hadn't studied those in depth at that point. And so I'd ask you, what do you recommend for this or for that? And how did you get started in flower essences? Like, what drew you to them? And, you know, where does their where does the beauty and their healing lie for you?
Mm. Full question, and I'll try to stream that answer down. So many years ago, I used to go to the Open Center in Manhattan on the Lower West Side, I believe, and I would take these great courses. It was just this tall building, just filled with every imaginable practitioner you can imagine, from famous to someone just starting out. And I was just hungry for this knowledge. I didn't know why. I just knew that I wanted to learn, but I wasn't thinking anything was wrong with me. I just was curious about these things. So, and I hate to use the word something's wrong with me, but something was definitely imbalanced just due to the trauma in my childhood. And I remember a woman walking up to me in the Open Center, and she said, "Hey, I'm a flower essence practitioner, and I'm looking for people that I can follow with throughout a year and document their case as they evolve." And I too quickly said yes, and then realized I didn't want to commit. And so I didn't. And ironically, 10 plus years later, I moved to Southern California. And sure enough, flower essences came along my path again. And I threw myself into it. So I've always found in my life, things introduce themselves to me. And I'm talking about homes, neighborhoods, apartments, people. I will meet them, not see them for years, and they'll literally show up again. Or the same with a neighborhood and an apartment. I'm like, oh my God, I was just in front of that building 3 years ago, and boom, I end up renting out of that building. So it all could be, it could have been at the time subconscious manifestation. So flower essence is a way that I have learned and have really stuck with it, just like yoga. I've really stuck with those particular modalities of healing for myself because it's flowers that are vibrationally infused in water. And as we know, water carries vibration. And what I always like to do before I go to bed at night or when I wake up in the morning is talk into my water and say something special about myself. And my new mantra when I talk into my water and then take a sip is, I am worthy. So this is something that flower essences are infused in water. They pick up the flower's vibration, and then they are created and put into stock bottles, which I can show you. I have one handy. Here's one. Impatience. But there's so many brands all over the world. There's so many different flowers to study. I just happen to have studied the Dr. Botch 38 flower remedies from England. And that has always been my go-to. And then everything else is just a little added extra. So they really help with the emotional imbalance in a natural way. They can be used on pets, babies, adults. You cannot overtake it. If you overtake it, it just won't vibrate with you. But if you go to a practitioner like myself, I do an intake on you, and then I assess what's best for you.
So when you're doing an intake, what does that look like? What types of questions are you asking? Or do people know kind of what they're coming to see you for?
Yeah,
Are
they
they
do.
like, I have this issue, give me something?
People, basically, yes.
Yeah.
So I also work in working with homeopathic medicine, which is a little pellets. People may know it by arnica pellets. Well, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those little tubes. And I have medical books. They're from India. And I was trained off of these little books. And someone will say, I've got this and this and this issue. But what I've learned through flower essences and having been trained I've studied 5 years at Coronergetics Institute in Manhattan, which is basically for body-mind integration psychotherapy. Is the language is really in the body. What's going on with the body? So the first thing I say to someone is, how are you feeling? Well, I'm not talking to my daughter, or I feel aggravated with my husband and I'm so disappointed in myself. So I immediately address the emotions, because the emotions really affect the body. And that's where the disease happens, is when we separate the body and the mind, when really it's all integrated, body, mind, and your soul, your higher power. It's all one. And I think we're so busy segmenting and breaking it all down that we forget that we're one vibrational unit. So let's get our vibe on, man.
I love that. I talk about this a lot, but with Western medicine, it is so compartmentalized and segmented down, like you're talking about. And I find that even more dramatically within the dermatology field. I'm sure there are plenty of good dermatologists out there that are more integrative. I actually really enjoy my dermatologist, which is the first time I've ever said that. But
Mm.
but I find, especially with dermatology, they have so much disconnect between what's going on the skin, and they're not relating it to the emotional aspect or what might be going on within the body causing that to come out on the skin. And you are also an esthetician. Add that to your many talents and your many things that you've studied. And you speak to your skin being the biggest organ of our body, and how it is like the shield to our body, and how
Mhm.
we need to protect the skin. So I'd love to dive into that deeper, and then also talk about how the skin is tied to that emotional and spiritual well-being as well.
It's a beautiful question. I really, really appreciate it. When we worked at Pharmaca, I was really blessed on a daily basis to meet so many incredible souls who they were just terrified, like, what's going on with my skin? This is all ages. And, what I loved and learned about working at Pharmaca was to drop judgment and have compassion. And I would almost be horrified when people would walk in with a little sample tube of Eucerin, or I can't remember what the CeraVe, or these basic things that are just, they just sort of
Standard over the
topically
counter.
standard
Yeah.
over the counter. Like, where did you get that from? And they're like, my dermatologist. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, no, stop. And I know they were coming to see us. And you remember that wall, it must have been over 20 something different natural products on the wall. And I was just so hungry for the different products. And what you and I had to learn to do very quickly was to assess what was going on with that client, help them get the right product, and then go on to the next client. Because you remember, there'd just be lines waiting to speak to someone. And once you build a rapport, it's like you have a rapport with your dermatologist. You feel safe. You feel like they hear you, they're listening, they're seeing you. And this, to me, it was very, very important. So I can remember a few cases where young girls would come in and they'd be like, what's happening? Look at this redness, or why am I having this skin line breaking out? And I would say, it's okay. I've also have a hereditary eczema and psoriasis. And when I learned that it was hereditary, I wasn't so aggravated with myself of going, oh my God, I've got another huge patch. And I had just probably under a year ago here, a huge, huge, oh God, it was so uncomfortable, eczema breakout. And it's like, what do they call it when babies get skull cap? Have you heard of that? Skull cap.
I
Is that what it's called?
think so.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and it was just this like, and I remember going to the hairdresser and she was like, oh my God, Maria. And I said, I know what it's from. And it was my excessive intake of sugar. And and so I was consuming a lot of wine, enjoying a lot of wine here on the island, a lot of socializing. And I remember saying to a couple of young girls, they're like, well, I'm on vacation in California. And I said, well, what's out of the norm in your routine? Well, I did a jog by the beach today and I'm getting my sleep. I said, how's your water intake while you've been on vacation? Oh, that's really dropped off. I said, okay. How's your eating habits? Oh, I hardly ever eat, say, meat. And I've been really consuming it on this trip. And then, because I don't want anyone to ever feel bad for what they're consuming, but I just want to bring awareness. So I said, out of curiosity, are you taking in a lot of maybe out of the usual alcohol intake? I am. And I said, there is so much fermented sugar in alcohol. And so they went, oh, and I would get these beautiful follow-ups from them saying, everything cleared up. Thank you for getting me on that remedy. Thank you for helping me become aware. So yes, our skin is our largest organ of the body. I believe in daily, if not a few times a week, exfoliation with a dry mitt. I actually happen to make a product that I am pretty soon going to be putting out there, and their ingredients are all natural, they're holistic and ethically sourced, and it was all based on my own skin, which was having just horrible, horrible outbreaks of psoriasis and eczema, not to mention the stress I was going through when I was married. So a lot of it adds up, diet, lack of exercise, under or overeating, over consumption of alcohol, and forgetting to take care of myself. I have to be honest. I am learning that that's a really integral part of really paying attention to myself and my needs.
Isn't that interesting that you and I, for example, have been in this healing world, holistic healing world for how many years? And we can still forget to take care of ourselves,
Yes.
you know?
Yes. I'm
Or
going
we
to tell
can,
you, for me, it's laziness.
yeah, laziness. This for me, it can be just distraction. For me, it can be, just like needing to take a break almost, you know, and just like give myself a rest already. Don't worry about what you eat today. Just, I mean, not that I worry, but don't plan it out so much. Don't adhere to the strict guidelines so much. Like let it loose for a little bit. And I can do that sometimes and get away with it. But the problem is when at least when I do that, it can trigger wanting to do it more and wanting to do it a little bit more. That could be staying up late. That could be drinking a little bit of alcohol. That could be more sugar, more carbs, all things that if I do little bits of here and there, it's fine. But if I do it and it's fine and I think, well, that was fine, I can do it again. Well, that was fine, I can do it again.
Exactly.
Oh boy, it adds up.
Well, we push ourselves and push ourselves
Yeah.
and push ourselves. And then the body, knowing that we have this immune deficiency, says, hey, I can only take so much, man. And it's got to give. It's just like anything. You don't fix your roof. Well, on a really good rainy day, you're going to have a leak, and the body gets a leak. And that's our signal to get back into alignment, not to berate ourselves, not to put ourselves down, because that just adds to the mental toxicity of self-abuse. And yeah,
And with the autoimmune spectrum, we don't have as much leeway as the standard, quote unquote healthy person that can, or the young person that can get away with eating fast food every other day and, drinking all weekend. Like you can get away with that for a while, but once you, and I'm not going to say that that doesn't lead to problems in the future. I think it generally does.
sure.
However, just on a general day-to-day basis, we can't watch those people doing that and think that, well, they're doing it, I want to do it too. And, we're that much more sensitive. We do have to be stricter. It doesn't mean, though, like you said, that we should berate ourselves once we start feeling the symptoms of choosing to step out of those lines. I think choosing to step out of those lines can be therapeutic at times too. So, it's a matter of finding our own balance and having some grace with ourselves when we're doing it.
I like that.
Yeah, but also having the deeper understanding that you don't have as much leeway and you really do need to pay a little bit closer attention to what you are consuming. And that consumption can be, physical, food, alcohol, whatever, but it can also be, emotional, it can be social. Like we have to pay attention to the energies we're surrounding ourselves with
Oh,
because, gosh, especially with autoimmune, you can get just that much more bogged down feeling from, for maybe lack of a better term, negative energies.
I
The
think you have a
people
very
that
good
you're
point.
around. Yeah. Yeah. What's your take on that? Like how, as it pertains to the skin, let's bring it back to the skin for a minute. We were talking about, let's talk about the energetic sense and how, you know, being like our internal well-being, emotional and spiritual well-being, how does that affect skin health? Or how can, I don't know, building up that strong, beautiful, glowing exterior, how does that help also to balance, bring balance to us?
There's a lot there to answer, Holly, so I'm
I
going to do my
know, I
best.
keep doing that. I keep
I
doing
love
that.
it though, because I'm like, oh God, how do I answer this?
Just take it wherever you want.
Okay, so you know what I like about the answer I'm going to give you? Because the question again is super cool. And I think it has to do with when you glow from the inside, you shine on the outside. And why I say that is because there are just some days where you're like, I know I shouldn't do this, but I want to do it and I'm going to do it. And once in a while, it's fine. And I also don't want to get so dogmatic about my skincare routine that I am losing myself within the joy and the day-to-day environment. I know that in California, I would literally lather myself in SPF. I live here on the island, and I can assure you, I have stopped putting on SPF.
That
There's,
makes me so happy to hear, Maria.
I'll have to tell me why. There is such a freedom in it. I do put on my hat, I do put on my glasses, but every day I walk the beach just to get that grounding energy, to relate back to your last video of grounding. And I'm just like, I'm fine. I'm healthy. I'm doing something to nourish myself. How could it harm me? So, yeah, this is how I believe when you take care of this and the thoughts that go in between your ears, this just catches up with you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure there's some people that are listening to this and they're like, how dare she say she's glad that she doesn't wear SPF? Doesn't she know she's going to get skin cancer and all these things? And
Can I stop you with that?
sure, I was going to clarify a little bit. Please go ahead.
Okay, because for those that may be concerned for skin health, as they should, but there is such a overkill in the United States on sunscreen. And I have had 6 Mohs surgeries, very serious surgeries, all over my face. You can, here was my last surgery, and on my chest, some stitches up to 30 stitches. And it was very serious. And I just said, I still want to enjoy my life. And I'm not going to be afraid, because I was really walking around terrified. Like I can remember walking around at Torrey Park. Torrey Park, is it?
Torrey Pines?
Torrey Pines. Oh my gosh, I've
Yeah.
forgotten it already. Torrey Pines. And I would look like a sheet, of white. It
Like a
was
ghost.
so silly. But looking back on it, if I go to the beach for an extended amount of hours, I am under an umbrella. I do put on 30, but I'm not reapplying. I am presently enjoying my life.
Yes.
So please,
Yes.
I just had to say, I am aware, but I'm also
I,
not letting it stop me.
I do appreciate that. Yeah. So the caveats, there's a lot of research that shows that, like, for example, I mean, I haven't studied this in quite a while, but when I was researching SPFs and all that, they have much different guidelines down in Australia
Hmm.
where they're baked by the sun than we do here. And they see it much differently. And they actually make recommendations as to you should be in the sun without SPF. But these are your optimal hours to be out there based on the melanin in your skin. This is the optimal, time range that you should be out in the sun, but you should be getting actual vitamin D on your skin. And we also have to think about the cancer causing chemicals that are used as sunscreen. So if you're going to be using sunscreen, preferably a zinc base is the best option. Maybe you
Yes.
have anything to add to that, but I think you touched on it. You said you were so fearful
Yeah.
of being in the sun. And energetically, when you're talking about fear, what does that conjure up for you? Like
Mm.
that's actually going to start a dis-ease in the body, energetically, that fear energy in the body. And like they're training us to be terrified to go outside. Like, how ridiculous is that? How many years in our ancestral history
Mm.
were we outdoor beings living under the sun with no sunscreen? Like, they weren't all dying from cancer, from skin
No.
cancers. So, like, there's so much lifestyle stuff that goes into the SPF and the skin care conversation when it comes to this. It's not black and white. It's not, if you're going outside, you need to be covering yourself either with sunscreen or with hats or long clothing. But I don't hardly ever wear sunscreen anymore. I do use it sometimes. It depends on what I'm doing. It depends
Hmm.
on what time of day I'm going
Like
to
if
be
you're
out.
going hiking, of course you're going to
Yeah,
protect yourself or,
right,
yeah.
right. I always wear a hat if I'm going to be out for any extended length of time. So, like, I'm taking precautions, but I think the other one of the other important aspects here is also to talk about self-awareness and being in tune with your body, because I'll go outside and lay in the sun, but I'm very well aware of the sensation of heat on my
Hmm.
skin.
Yes.
And I can basically, as long as I'm paying attention and I'm not getting distracted by being on my phone or reading a book or something, I can tell when it's time, like, okay, it's time to get in the shade. So
Good
I think
point.
if we're relying on SPF, we're also telling ourselves it's okay to ignore our body's signals, telling us, what our time limits are.
There was
I,
something you said that I want to touch upon, and and I find that fear can be stimulated through the news. Fear can be stimulated through powerful advertising and is incredibly beneficial to use sunscreen. Absolutely. I definitely support sunscreen, but I also know that there is also marketing, and marketing and news feed can drive fear right into our hearts.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to touch upon that. You don't really see it used here, sunscreen. The only one that's using it is the tourists that come from the States.
Yeah, because
So
they're not. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, my skin has acclimated and adjusted to living here. I've been here 4 years, so I'm going to be honest. The first 3.5, I was diligent, the wide brim hat until one gust of wind blew it into the ocean. And I never saw that hat again. And I loved that hat. It was an SPF hat. I said, what am I going to do? And then one day I wanted to take a walk on the beach and I didn't have my blessed hat. You know what? I was fine. And so I would say for a year and a half now, I have been, or maybe a year now, I've been using my sunscreen, but not to the degree that I was
Mhm.
emotionally brainwashed in the States.
Sure. And what time of the day are you taking your walks without hats and sunscreen? Is it
Oh, no, no, no.
earlier?
absolutely wear my hat. I
Yeah.
absolutely wear my glasses. If I am going to go out at 9 a.m., no, I'm out
Right.
with my hat and my
Exactly.
glasses. But if I know that I'm out at 12 and I just was like, God, I really want to get a walk in, I definitely will put
Yeah.
my sunscreen on. And there are times I just sort of jet out the door because it hasn't become, loosened up that ingrained thought in my brain.
Hmm.
But if I had skin sensitivities, like right now, my skin is really thriving with my eczema and psoriasis. So I'm doing really, really well. And I realize my skin needs it. But for those that are having outbreaks, absolutely, you should be wearing maybe an SPF shirt or a rash guard or, doing everything you need to do to take precaution. Of course. I mean, this is
Yeah.
just what you should do.
It's
And of
common
course,
sense.
yeah,
It's
common
common sense.
sense.
It's remembering that we have common sense in the first place, and
There you
we
go.
can realize that walking at 9 a.m. in the sun on the beach is a lot different than midday sun.
Oof, it's completely different.
Yeah,
It makes me walk faster.
that too. The one last point I actually want to make about this too is that I have lupus. Lupus is commonly triggered by the sun. And I do believe that that is what triggered, well, one common component of what triggered my patch of baldness on my scalp, which is can be common with lupus.
Okay.
But I think that being in the sun, we were visiting friends in Kauai, and I came back and my scalp was itchy and I couldn't figure out what was going on. Then I started losing hair, and at the time I attributed it to a sunburn on my scalp.
Mm.
But I was also, that was really leading up to an eventual diagnosis of lupus. I didn't have it diagnosed yet. And I was also in a kind of a depressive state at that point in
Mm-hmm.
my life. I just didn't know where I was going. So there was the emotional component as well.
Sure.
But all that to say that now where I'm at with my health, and I've done obviously so much work on myself, lupus is in remission, I'm doing very well. Now I intentionally go out in the sun, intentionally uncovered, intentionally getting vitamin D on my skin to help my
Mm.
immune system. But one big difference is that now I don't eat seed oils. And I've talked about this with my dermatologist as well. And I have not peeled. I hardly ever sunburn. Occasionally I do by accident, but I have not peeled since cut out all seed oils.
This is incredible. And I can understand the correlation of seed oils with skin, but
Mm-hmm.
what did you discover that seed oil, how it was affecting you? Because I'm going to tell you something. Certain oils in natural skincare, rosehip can actually create sunburns.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So that's why I
That
was
I didn't
really
know because
careful
it's, yeah,
with my
because it's in
ingredients.
it's in so many safe, clean skin products.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, seed oils, what I'm referring to is in your food products,
Yep. Oh,
cooking
okay.
with.
So what you
Yeah.
cook with?
Yeah. Canola oil and canola oil, soybean oil are kind of like the top two that you're going to see it in. It's used in virtually every single restaurant. It's in every single processed food item that you're going to find on any shelf in any grocery store, even the
Mm,
healthy stuff,
mm.
because it's cheaper. It's cheaper than using olive oil or animal tallow or ghee or butter. So that's why it's used all the time. And unfortunately, they're very unstable. They're high in omega 6 and they're very inflammatory. So if you're causing inflammation in the body, that causes more oxidation in the body, and that's going to show up on the skin.
Great discovery.
So, yeah. So, I didn't go into it thinking that it was going to affect my skin that way, but that was just one of the outcomes of cutting that out of my diet.
Love it. What a great discovery. Thank you for sharing that.
So, let's get more into the energetics. I want to talk about self-love because this is something you and I had been discussing prior to our conversation here. And you've been going through a big self love journey and self love realization. And I was hoping you could give us a little taste of what that's looked like for you. And then I want to bring that around to just what we can learn as a whole, like as a community from it.
I'd always heard the term self-love, and I couldn't wrap my head and emotions around what it meant. And I would hear so many people that I turned to saying, you need to love yourself. You need to love yourself. And I was just like, I'm trying, I'm desperately trying, but I truly didn't know what it meant or how to do it. And after 3 years of seeing someone that I was dearly in love with, about a month ago, our relationship ended. And it was only at that moment that the universe, God, graced me with, now we're going to teach you what self-love means. And I thought I was going to crawl out of my skin. And I look back on that and I think to myself, my gosh, crawl out of your own skin because you can't handle self-love? Like, what a sad concept that treating yourself well and talking to yourself nicely, it just was so foreign to me. And so my journey has been, I've learned all these different beautiful modalities of healing. I started with that. But one of the biggest things I had to learn in these past 30 days was how I viewed myself, how I was shaming myself, and how I was emotionally abusing myself over the ending of a love affair. And I look back now that those 30 days I thought would, I come and go with those moments of, oh, but I realize how blessed I am to also have been through that, because now I am so much more aware and so much more gracious to myself. And I like it. And I was never given these positive affirming tools as a child. I grew up in a family that's not how we spoke to each other. And that's not how I was spoken to. So I just carried on what I thought was what you're supposed to do, is continue to berate yourself and put yourself down. And I'm telling you, no matter what you're going through, whether it's a physical, emotional, work-related, just any person, place, or situation, I want to tell you that is not the way to heal yourself. Do not berate yourself. Do not put yourself down. That is just killing and squashing your soul.
So, how have you learned to transition out of that pattern? Like, it's one thing to know that berating yourself is an unhealthy pattern, but have you actually shifted into not doing it?
Holly, that's such a powerful question. And I'm going to be honest with you. I was a little nervous that you would ask me that question because it is really loaded. Something that comes to mind that my therapist said to me in a session, she said, my God, the way you talk to yourself is so shocking. She said, no one needs to tell you don't know what you're doing. Maria, you are such a master at putting yourself down. She said, I'm at a loss for words. And it was just that sentence that made me go, oh my God, what am I doing? And to relate back to an earlier conversation I had with you, which was never having put myself first because I was in charge of being a caretaker emotionally in my family, that I didn't know how to take care of myself. So when I entered into romantic union with my partner, it's something I had referred to as plugging into a nuclear power plant. I would just, take the plug and go, click. Now I'm hooked up to you. You're going to be my energy supply. You're going to be the reason why I smile and the reason why I throw my sheets off my body in the morning and the reason why I'm feeling beautiful. And when that abruptly ended, I had to face my biggest fear, which was, how could I supply myself that nurturing, loving, voice. And it began really slowly, Holly, really, really slowly. I mean, there were days I didn't eat. There were days I didn't shower. There were days that it was hard for me to get out of bed. I just got out and did what I had to. And then just slowly, slowly, I said, my God, Maria, you have so many tools under your belt. Start utilizing your therapist, start utilizing YouTube and learning, start journaling, start using your flower essence, your homeopathic remedies, start praying again, start doing your yoga practice. And the tools were there, but for some reason, I felt like I wasn't worthy of recovery until I realized I was very much worthy of recovery. So, just to reiterate, I want to also say that I cannot be angry at the loss of my partner. It's that partner gave me such a great gift. And I will be indelibly grateful to this man for teaching me the wound that I was unable to heal from childhood until he came along, which was, I love you, but I'm going to love me more.
That is so powerful, Maria. And I think that going through different experiences, people can still learn from what you just said. They can still take the same, they can learn those takeaways no matter what their situation. I think so much we get ingrained with so much during childhood, and I know for you, you're very aware of your childhood wounds. Other people may or may not be, but so much of what affects us in adulthood does start by the time, from 0 to 7 years old is where we're really imprinted with these patterns of, emotions and actions and reactions. And when you say that you are so grateful to this person, even though you ended up very, very hurt, it was still an incredible blessing because there were plenty of good times within that relationship that were life-giving, but also that your wound was brought to light. You were taught lessons. You were given the gift of in getting out of that relationship. You were given a gift to work on yourself and to teach yourself how to love you again. And I think just that is something that so many people, I think, are trying to figure out, whether they realize it or not. And within, to bring it back again to the chronic illness community, there's a lot of trauma in the background that can potentially have triggered even the symptoms of the onset, or triggered the onset for the health issue.
Absolutely.
But right, yeah, huge triggers there with trauma, but also there's so much trauma leading into diagnosis and leading into just dealing with the Western medical system. We were speaking to this on the last podcast as well, but there's all these little micro traumas within that. And I think when we get our diagnosis, it's like validation, validation. There is something wrong with me, and this is what it is. And we hold on to it like a badge of honor. But there's some danger in that we can get lost within that, just like you getting lost within that relationship, plugging into that person for validation. It's like we're plugging into that diagnosis for validation of what we're going through. And I think one of the deepest lessons that we can take from our health experiences is bringing it back to love. It's not, what is our body doing to us? Why is this happening to me? It's, what are the lessons here? Yeah, they suck. I don't like this. This, doesn't feel good. But maybe there's some blessings within that. So how can I use this experience to learn more about myself and to learn to love myself better than I was doing before?
I think you hit the nail on the head when you realize that something is off within your body, in your system, and then you go and get the diagnosis, and that's just another hit to, oh my gosh, how do I handle this? But what I loved with what I feel like I'm hearing you say is, I didn't give up on myself, and I didn't say, oh, well, that's it. I'm going to eat McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken every day and, you know, run this like I never ran it before. What I'm hearing you say is, I'm not giving up on myself. I'm going to research this. And oh, look at what I discovered. And oh, look at, you know what? I think I want to share this with other people so they're not lost in the dark. And maybe someone is like, oh my goodness, I thank you for that. That research helped me as well. So bringing things to light should never be shameful or a burden. I think it's a blessing when we can do like you're doing. You know, you discovered seed oil was a huge part of your being in remission and also going into the sunlight. You know, these are gifts from the universe to have a moon at night and, you know, to hear what I hear, all the nature here and the sun coming up in the morning. Just what a blessing. And to have 2 feet that you can actually put on the ground and walk. Some people, we're just not blessed with that. And I just love that you're bringing just awareness to your emotional health, your physical health, and having a podcast. It just has a variety and a range of people to bring awareness to eventually what it all comes down to, loving yourself.
That is just the message that keeps coming up for me over and over lately is back to love, remembering, and getting back to love.
Yeah.
Always bring it back to love. Nothing else is going to serve you to the extent that it could if you are out of, if you've lost the belief that you are love. I think
I
it
heard something today right before I got to speaking with you, and I happened to follow Self-Realization Fellowship. My one of the podcasts on their channel today was about fear, and I had recently gone through something else in my life, and I became deeply panicked. Well, guess what I had dropped doing? My meditations, because I knew better. But my head is a running racehorse. It's like, no. And no, you know what? I had dropped my meditation, which creates for me to breathe, oxygenate my heart, oxygenate my nervous system, calm down, relax, set your timer. If it starts out at 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So I hadn't been meditating. So I started meditating again. And he said something so profound today. And I was so grateful. Again, thank you for this blessing to turn love on myself, which is fear is when we don't trust our higher power, which could be our soul, the soul we were born into, knowing it knows more than we know, because we're just layers of, what life has given us. And so we're just sometimes like little puppets and robots going, I will do this and I will do that. And we forget that innately we are really vibrational beings that are so beautiful. And meditate, sit still, sit quiet, listen to nice music. If you have a hard time focusing, put on a little bit of classical music in the background. It's just something to deviate from instead of going, oh, that problem, which is only just going to get you back in your head. And so for me, and another blessing was realizing that my fear came from dropping my trust in God. And that was really powerful and beautiful, because sometimes you do have to throw it up. You got to throw it up there, just like the manifestation. You manifest, and then you go, okay, got to throw it up there. And then it lands.
think that's a wonderful place to come to a close. Maria, what are you working on these days and where can people find you?
I am at www.mariasinai.com. And I'm also working on a natural cream that I've actually been working on for years, as you're well aware. And San Diego is playing around with a recipe, and I have finally found fine-tuned it. And so labels are being printed now as we speak, and it's going to be coming out soon. So stay tuned. And it's going to be called Sea Dream. And it really is an influence of the time I have spent at sea with my past love and living across the street from a beach. The influence of just keeping the skin beautiful, glowing, hydrated, and all those beautiful organic and very clean ingredients are in it.
Awesome. I will definitely put your link in the show notes, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see your new product on the market.
Thank you so much. I look forward to announcing it.
Of course. Well, Maria, this has been so much fun. Thank you for coming on with me. And I know we could talk for hours, but maybe we'll have to do a part 2 at some point here.
Sounds wonderful. Thanks for having me, and thanks to your listeners.
Maria is someone that I have always just loved talking to. She always has such amazing insight and knowledge and interesting ways of viewing things. And she always makes me think about something different than I had been before talking to her. And I hope that you had that experience as well. One thing that she said, I wrote down and I want to repeat for you here is when you glow from the inside, you shine on the outside. I want you to really think about that and take that in. What does that mean to you? That could be referring to glowing on the inside as far as your health, your physical health. That can also mean, of course, glowing emotionally on the inside, spiritually on the inside. And so, moving forward, how are you going to embrace that concept? What are you going to do for yourself today that brings just a little bit more self love to your life in order to generate that glow and seed that glow? It's like I'm picturing the billows to the fire, right? Slowly fanning the fire and keeping those glowing embers. And so we want to build up those embers within our body and turn that into an outer shine. And we're not doing that for other people, we're doing it for ourselves. But the amazing thing is, as we do that for ourselves, other people do notice. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know what secret you have that they don't. And it's a powerful and beautiful way to enrich not just your own life, but others as well, because you will attract more people that want to do the same for themselves. And you get to be a little bit of that light in their life when you can feed your own soul, your own self-worth. So how are you going to feed your glow today? That's what I want you to think about as I leave you here. If you want some help in feeding your own glow when it comes to your mindset, when it comes to your physical health, your spiritual health, I have a system that I use with my clients to help feed that inner glow, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And when I work with clients, I take them through a system that walks them through essentially a self love process, right? It's self love when we put ourselves first, it's self love when we take care of ourselves, it's self love when we start looking at our underlying patterns that have maybe been holding us back from our next level of growth. It's self love when we learn how to nurture and nourish our body. So we go through a system to simplify that process for you and to create these self care promises on a daily basis to support that inner glow and help you shine brighter on the outside. So, if you're ready to have a chat about that and see if this might be the right system for you to use, apply for a call with me. I would love to connect with you. I would love to chat with you. It's free. So, really, what do you have to lose? We're coming up on the new year. And while I'm not the fan of new year, new me, it is a perfect time to really take stock for yourself. Take a look at this last year. Take a look at where you are right now, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and is it where you want to be? And if not, let's address it. There's no reason to wait any longer. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you. This came out right after Thanksgiving. So I hope you had a great holiday if you're here in the States. And I look forward to seeing you on another episode of the Health Bridge podcast next week. Thank you so much for listening.